Hey friends, thank you for watching this video. I am Mohamad, and today we're going to be doing a short video on how we can actually utilize Docker Hub. We're going to be actually pushing Docker images and then pulling them down and understanding how we can actually tag them, why do we need to do that, so on and so forth. If you like this video, please like, share and subscribe. It will really help the channel. Now, let's jump into it. So today we're going to be actually doing a very short video on how we can actually push our images to Docker Hub and how we can pull them and why do we might need to do that. So what's on our agenda for today? We're going to first discuss the general approach of container deployment, and then we're going to be discussing the ingredients that we're going to be needing, and we're going to go into the code. We're going to be utilize an existing ASP.NET application for us to push to our Docker Hub and then to pull it back down. We're not going to be doing any development regarding ASP.NET, we're just going to be utilizing the Docker command line in order for us to achieve this. So, what is the general approach? So as we can see here, we have our Docker file, and from our Docker file, we can actually build our Docker image. Once we have built our Docker image locally, this is all on our machine, we can actually put it down to create a container from it, and we can actually utilize our application. After that, we can either push it to Docker Hub, and once it's pushed to Docker Hub, we can actually utilize it on different servers like staging, QA, dev, and production. So the process of pushing into Docker Hub is actually we are saving the application to our container registry. So what is a container registry? Container registry, we can think about it as a code registry, which is basically a place we can store all of the containers that we have. And it's not only us. Basically, we can find a lot of open source containers that existed that we can actually utilize them inside our application. So because of that, we can utilize Docker Hub, which is one of the most famous container registry available for us, and it's free. We can actually utilize a lot of the feature for free. So that's why we're actually utilizing it. So within Docker Hub, we can then actually pull those images to any server or to any environment that we want. In this video, we're not going to be setting up any servers. We're just going to be pulling down back to our machine. And once we put it back down to our machine, we can just run it from there. So back from Docker Hub, we can actually as well connect it directly to a CI/CD pipeline. So let's say we have a fully CI/CD pipeline. What we can do is as soon as we push our code to GitHub, we can actually trigger an action that will take our source code. From there, we can actually build that image, store it on Docker Hub, and then we can utilize it anywhere else. And that's a bit more advanced. We're going to be covering this topic in 2022, but for now, we're just going to go through the general approach of why we might need to do this and how we can actually implement this. So what are the ingredients? We're going to be needing Visual Studio Code in order for us to edit our code. We're going to be needing the .NET SDK. It's not really necessary if you want to just run the application locally on your machine. And we're going to be needing Docker Hub. Basically, you can go to these links and you can actually download them. So let's get started. So we're going to be utilizing an application that we have already built it in the beginning of the year. And in order for you to find it, you need to go to GitHub. And this is my own GitHub account. Please, if you're not following me there, follow me there. I had to plug this in. And then once you go, you can go to repositories. And inside the repositories, you can look for, I think it's called V19. And it's Docker intro. And it's going to be this repository here. And it's a very simple repository. We're going to pull this down to our machine right now. And once we put it to our machine, we're going to actually open it in Visual Studio Code and take it from there. So let's open our terminal. And inside our terminal, what we're going to be doing is we're going to put navigate to our desktop. Gonna create a new folder. Gonna call it Docker sync. And then we're gonna go to Docker sync. And then once we do that, we're gonna click on this green button. We're gonna copy the URL for it. And we're gonna put git clone. And we're gonna paste the URL. It's gonna ask me for my password. And now I have my application. Now let's open it in Visual Studio Code. So now Visual Studio Code is open. Let's take a look at our application. We can see here that we have a normal ASP.NET 5 application. We can see here that we have our controllers folder with our home controllers. We can see here we have our program.cs, and we have our startup class. Very simple and straightforward ASP.NET 5 application. So what ASP.NET Core 5 application? So first of all, let's open a new terminal, and what we're going to be doing here is not navigate to the folder. Let's put .NET build. Let's make sure this is not it yet, so we need to go to docker sample, and then we need to do .NET build. Perfect, it's building, just to make sure it's working, and it's building as it should. Okay, great. Now that it's building, the next step that you need to do is let's go back to our web browser. And inside our web browser, the main thing that we need to do is we need to have a Docker Hub account. So that's really important. So how do you set up a Docker Hub account? It's very easy. So first of all, what you need to do is you need to go to hub.docker.com. These links will be available in the description down below, and you need to create your account from there. I have already signed into my account and have already created. And basically, once you log in, it will prompt you to download your Docker application. So it automatically detected that my machine is a Mac, and it prompted me to download it either from the Intel or Mac chips. I have already downloaded this, and we can see here that we have a small whale icon running, which means that Docker have installed successfully, and we have here the small green icon, which means that it's up and running. Perfect. So once we have done that, I want to first make sure that I don't have any repositories, because I think I'm only allowed one as a free account. So as we can see here, I don't have any, which is exactly what we want. So once we have set up our Docker account, now it's time for us to, from the command line, to actually build our Docker image, tag it, and then actually push it to Docker Hub and see how it works from there. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code. So inside Visual Studio Code, the first thing that we're going to be doing is we need to build our Docker file. And basically, once we build our Docker file, we'll be able to create our Docker image. So let's do this right now. And how do we do that? We're going to be utilizing the docker build command. So docker build, and once we have specified the Docker build, there's two things that we need to do. First, we need to tell Docker where is the Docker file exist, and we tell it by actually putting the, if we don't put anything, it's gonna assume it's on the same directory as it is, so we need to have the dot here. But before we do that, we need to tag it. Let's see why do we need to tag it. First, let's build this image like this. So this is gonna take a few seconds, because basically I deleted everything, so we can see how much, what's the process of actually building an image. Actually, before we do that, while it's doing that, let's go to the Docker file and let's see what does it do. So we can see here we're just pulling an SDK from Docker Hub, and it's the version 5. And then once we do that, we are copying the CS proj, and then we're doing the .NET restore, so we can make sure that all of the packages are restored. Once we have done that, we copy all of the rest of the source code. Once the source code is copied to our container, we actually just publishing it into a folder, and once that's published, we're creating a new image, and that image that we're creating a new base image. We're getting a new base image, and then inside that new base image we're creating a folder called app, and then we are actually copying our published application from the previous step to this new image, and then basically we're specifying an entry point. It's a very straightforward and an easy Docker file to follow. If you have any questions, please ask in the comments down below, or you can actually go watch that video regarding how we can set up Docker, which I'll be linking here somewhere on the upper right hand side. So now that our image has been completely created, which you can see here, we can see that this is the ID that the image has got, because we have created it. And I'm sure like no human will be able to memorize all of this. Specifically, maybe you can memorize one or two, but if you're dealing with let's say 50 projects and you have 50 containers, 50 images, it's going to be hard to maintain it. That's why we need to actually have, or to tag it with much more human readable name. But before that, let's see if we put Docker images, we can see here that we have a new Docker image, which is the one that we have just created, and we can see that we only have the ID for it. We don't have anything. But right now what we're going to be doing is we need to tag this image with a human readable name. So let's do this right now. So Docker build, exactly the same commands as before, but the only difference is we're gonna put -t, which basically means that we're gonna be tagging this image and we're gonna be giving it any name that we want for now. We're just gonna call it for now sample API. And then don't forget we need to put the dot, and because we did not specify where the Docker file is, Docker was gonna assume it's in the same root directory. So let us run this. And we can see here something is different. So not only that we have got the ID, but below it we can see that it has been tagged with sample API, which is exactly what we wanted. And now if we put Docker images, we can see that our image has been tagged with the sample API, and it's the latest one, which is exactly what we wanted, because it's much more easier for us to look for an image with the name rather than with the ID. And right now, if we want to, for example, run this image, we can actually just do Docker run. Let's specify the ports. And we specify the name, sample API. And we can see it's running. And if we go to our web browser and we put localhost 8080, and we can see that it's running hello to Docker, hello world app. Perfect, that's exactly what we wanted. So let's go back to our Visual Studio Code and let's stop the application and let us refresh this, and this should stop. Great, exactly what we wanted. So now that we have our application is running locally and we have built an image, now is the step that we want to actually push it to Docker Hub. But before we do that, we need to actually tag this image in a certain way. So what is this way that we need to tag it for? Basically, in order for us to, let me create a new, I'm gonna here type the format that we need to actually tag this image in, so Docker Hub it make it way more easier for it to understand it. So first of all, we need to specify the Docker Hub username. So in my case, it's gonna be Mohamad Lawand. And then once I do that, I need to put a /, and then I need to put my Docker image name, which is our case going to be sample application, sample API. And then once we have done that, the next step is we need to specify the version. So if we don't specify the version, it's going to take to the latest. But if we want to do versioning on Docker Hub, we need to put which version that we want. So that's the format. So basically we need to put Docker Hub username, Docker image name, and then we need to put the version. So that's going to be the format. So first we're going to put the Docker Hub username. So if we go back to our web browser and we go to Docker Hub, you can see my username here is Mohamad Lawand. And if I go to my profile to verify this, you should be able to see it, Mohamad Lawand. Exactly, this is my username. And then this is basically the Docker image name that we have created, and we have just called it sample API. And then we need to actually specify the version. So let us do this right now. So first of all, we need to tag it. And how do we tag it? By actually building it and putting in the -t command. So it's going to be Docker build -t Mohamad Lawand / sample API. And for now, I'm not going to specify any version. I'm just gonna put a dot at the end and make sure it runs again, and we can see here that the image has been tagged with Mohamad Lawand with sample API. So right now, if I put Docker images, we can see here that I have basically two images. One is sample API, which is the first one, and the second one, which is the one I have just tagged it, which is gonna be Mohamad Lawand and sample API. And both of them, we can see that they refer to the same ID, which means that it's the same image, but they are tagged in two different names. So now that I have tagged it in this way, how can I push it to Docker Hub? Very easy. So all I need to do is just, first of all, I need to make sure that I am logged in to Docker Hub through my terminal. And to do that, I need to put Docker login. And once I do that, I have already logged in, but from your side, it's gonna actually prompt you to log in. It's gonna ask you for your username and password. Once you do that, it's gonna be just input them and you're gonna be logged in. So once you have done that, let's clear this. The next step is we're gonna push it to Docker Hub. So we're gonna put Docker push the image that we wanna push, Mohamad Lawand / sample API, and we're gonna push this, and we can see here that basically it took by default the latest because I did not specify a version. And then once I have done that, we can see that the images has started to being uploaded to Docker Hub. This is gonna take a few seconds, or actually a few minutes. We'll come back after this has been done.
A few moments later.
Now that our push has been completed, let's go back to our web browser to make sure that it has been pushed successfully. So we'll go back to our web browser, and from there, basically all I need to do is do refresh, and I should see here sample API. And once I refresh, it's gonna take a few seconds, and we can see here that my application, or basically my Docker image, has been pushed successfully. And if I go into it, we can see that this is my container, or basically this is my Docker image that I have pushed, and we can see just a few seconds ago. Perfect. So right now I'm gonna go back to Visual Studio Code, and what I'm gonna be doing is I'm gonna basically removing everything related to this application locally, so we can pull it back down from Docker Hub and actually execute it and make sure it's running. So I'm gonna do a system prune. Yes. Perfect. Now that the application has completely gone, if I put Docker images, I should not see anything. It's empty because we don't have anything. So how do I pull it down? Let's go back here, and we can see here that we have the command to pull this image back to my machine. I'm gonna copy this. I'm just gonna paste it here and click on enter, and we can see right now it's basically got the latest version, and we can see it started to pulling down all of the images. So this is going to be way more faster than actually uploading it. And another few seconds. Perfect. Now my image is available locally, so if I put Docker images, I should be able to see it. Great. And now if I want to actually run it, it's very easy. All I need to do is put Docker, run the application. Actually, first let's do the port, which is going to be -p 8080 8080, and then we're going to put Mohamad Lawand / sample API, and we're just going to put enter. And we can see here that the application is running. And if we go back to my web browser and back to my local host here, and if I refresh this, we should be able to see the application running. Perfect. Now one more thing that we want to cover here is, for example, if I want to add a version for it. So let's stop this and let us basically do another system prune so we can actually remove everything. And what I'm gonna do right now is I'm gonna be actually tagging the image, but I'm gonna be attaching a version. So it's gonna be Docker build -t Mohamad Lawand / sample API. I'm gonna give it version 1.1, for example, and don't forget the dot. We can see now the image start building. It's gonna re-download everything again. Perfect. Now that the image is started to build, I think this is gonna take a few more seconds. Great. Now we can see that the Docker image is actually tagged with a version 1.1. So if I put Docker images, I can see here that I have the tag 1.1. So right now if I want to push this, so Docker push, and I just need to put Mohamad Lawand / sample API, and let us just give it the version, excuse me, and we can see here that I'm pushing the version that I actually want. So once this is pushed, it's much more easier to push it again because I already have a previous version there. So right now if I go back to my web browser and let's go back to Docker Hub and I refresh, and if I click on tags, I can see here that I have two different versions. So I have one which is going to be the latest one, which is basically the image that I don't have any versioning attached to, and I have another one which basically have another version attached to it. So that way it makes it much more easier for me to have versioning inside my container. It's much more easier for me to decide if something gone wrong with one version, I can revert to another version, so on and so forth. Great. So basically this is going to be the end of the video for today. Thank you very much for watching. Any questions, please put them in the comments down below. Please like, share and subscribe if you like this video. It will really help the channel. Have a great day.